Have you ever stopped to think about how just one really bold decision by a few visionary women can actually ripple out over a whole century?
It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, sparking this huge movement of sisterhood and service. It's remarkable what can come from that kind of courage.
It absolutely is. And today, that's exactly what we're doing, taking a deep dive into that kind of story. We're looking at the fascinating origins and the incredible enduring legacy of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Incorporated.
That's right. And our guide, our main source for this exploration, is an amazing book. It's called Before You Pledge, Essential Information You Should Know about Black Greek letter organizations and the dynamics of pledging in a culture of hazing. It's by the historian and sociologist Dr. Michael J. Winfield Sr., and it has a foreword by J.T. Childs Jr.
Yeah, it's a really comprehensive look. So our mission today really is to unpack the history around the founding at Howard University back in 1913. We want to explore, the unique reasons why it started then and there and trace its journey. I mean, from this bold idea to, well, a global powerhouse focused on sisterhood and service.
And to really get a feel for how significant this founding was, we kind of need to set the scene. Think about the United States in 1913. The sociopolitical climate for the Black community was incredibly challenging.
Yeah, treacherous even. Dr. Winfield really emphasizes this. President Woodrow Wilson, who, had courted Black votes with promises, showed a very different side once he was in office. His first Congress saw an unprecedented number of anti-Black bills proposed.
Wow.
He broke with tradition, refusing to appoint African Americans as consuls to places like Haiti and Santo Domingo. He even shot down a proposal for a national race commission.
And he actually started segregation in government offices.
He did. Which, as Dr. Winfield points out, was a real step backwards, especially since there had been some progress before that. It was quite a shock.
And 1913 itself just feels heavy with history. You mentioned Harriet Tubman.
Passed away March 10th. Mother Moses, such a huge loss.
And then Fanny Jackson Coppin, a real pioneer in education, one of the first Black women college grads back in 1865. She died just weeks before Delta's founding, January 21st.
Right. So the key insight here, and Dr. Winfield touches on this, is that Delta Sigma Theta wasn't just founded in 1913. You could argue it was founded because of 1913. Because of this turbulent environment, the political betrayals, these profound losses, it created a need, a demand for an organization ready for active social change.
That makes sense. So, okay, let's go back to Howard University, that initial spark of sisterhood and the challenges they faced almost immediately.
Right. So Delta Sigma Theta, founded there in 1913 by women who were members of Alpha Kappa Alpha.
Okay, former members.
Yes, former members. And according to Dr. Winfield, this was a really pivotal moment for sisterhood, but within what he calls a very fragile Black Greek community at Howard at that time.
Fragile, okay.
Yeah. And it's always tricky recounting the origins of two groups that sprang from one source, especially when perspectives differ.
Sure.
So our focus today will largely be from the perspective presented for Delta Sigma Theta's 22 founders, based on the research Dr. Winfield compiled. It gives you one crucial side of this significant history.
Got it. So the story really kicks off, it seems, with a kind of leadership vacuum in Alpha Kappa Alpha, a.k.a.
Exactly.
After many of the experienced members, including their past president Nellie Mae Quander, graduated in June 1912.
Right. That created this noticeable gap. The younger members felt a bit adrift, maybe questioning the direction without that steady, experienced hand. It definitely acted as a catalyst.
So what were the specific issues? It wasn't just a vague feeling, right?
No, not at all. By 1912, Dr. Winfield details several concrete reasons for the discontent. First, there was this growing disconnect from the graduate sorors.
Nope.
Delta historian Mary Elizabeth Roman noted they were busy with student teaching and campus life, so their connection to the undergrads felt less present. Then there was this maybe subtle but persistent academic rivalry. Students in the Teachers College versus the liberal arts school.
Campus politics spilling over.
Pretty much. It apparently led to members voting against each other within the sorority. That kind of thing really hinders unity,
Yeah, absolutely. And then there was the legal status issue.
Crucial point. According to research by another Delta historian, Edna Morris, AKA wasn't actually incorporated then. No charter, no legal authority to establish chapters.
So they couldn't grow nationally?
Legally, no. That seriously limited their potential reach and ambition for bigger projects. Plus, some members felt the name Alpha Kappa Alpha sounded maybe a bit too much like Alpha Phi Alpha.
And remember, folks, that's Phi, P-H-I, as in high five.
Exactly. And on top of that, they weren't keen on the titles.
The Greek titles.
Yeah. Things like Basilius, Anti-Basilius, Grammateus, Epistolius, Tamiuchos, President, VP, Secretary, Corresponding Secretary, Treasurer. They found them, Dr. Winfield uses the words ostentatious and gratuitous. A bit much, basically.
Okay, so it sounds like the younger members wanted something fundamentally different.
I think so. They were pushing for an organization that was, legally sound, politically active, more modern, outward-looking. A vision they felt AKA wasn't quite fulfilling at that moment.
Now, this is interesting, the Omega Psi-Phi influence.
Right.
The source mentions a close association. 2 Omega founders were dating AKA members.
Dr. Winfield notes, Edith Young was dating Edgar A. Love, and Frank Coleman became engaged to marry Edna Brown.
Okay.
And get this, Frank Coleman's sister, Grace Coleman, was one of the very first Delta initiates. She even became a Delta Sigma Theta president later on.
Wow, close ties indeed.
Definitely. And the success of Omega Psi-Phi, sometimes nicknamed Q, Q-U-E, pronounced like the letter Q.
Right, Q.
Their success in getting university recognition despite opposition, that might have really spurred the younger AKAs on. According to Jimmy Bug Middleton, the Omegas actually challenged them.
Challenged them how?
To form an organization like Omega Psi-Phi sort of lit a fire under them, perhaps inspired them toward this new path.
And what a path. These women weren't just thinking about Howard, they wanted a nationwide, politically driven group focused on community service.
Yeah, really tapping into that burgeoning feminist spirit of 1912.
So who really drove this new vision?
Dr. Winfield points to Mudry White. She's described as an inspiration of the whole Delta movement. She apparently initiated the talks about changing the name, the motto, the colors, the symbols, everything.
And the colors, crimson and cream. Specific meaning there.
Yes, chosen to symbolize courage, the crimson, and purity, the cream, and the flower, the African violet.
Why the violet?
Mudry White chose it not just for modesty, but she believed, like the African diaspora, it was destined for the 4 corners of the earth. Plus, it created a subtle link to the Omegas.
How so?
Their colors are purple and gold. The violet, being purple, it symbolized that unique bond, that connection.
Interesting. And the name, Delta Sigma Theta.
They actually consulted Dr. Edward P. Davis, a linguistics professor there at Howard. He helped them arrive at Delta.
Delta meaning?
Transformation and change, exactly what they were aiming for. It signified their commitment to success, to forging this new path.
But this vision, this push for change, it wasn't smooth sailing, right? Nellie Mae Quander, the former AKA president.
Right. According to AKA historian Marjorie Parker, when Quander heard about the reorganization plans, she was, quote, horrified.
Horrified. Strong word.
Yeah. She tried to stop it, gave the undergraduates a deadline to basically drop the whole thing and come back fully into the AKA fold.
And how did they respond?
The 22 women stood firm, united. They ignored her recommendation. They were determined.
So they kept pushing. Meetings with university officials.
They met with George William Cook, with Dean Louis B. Moore, seeking approval from the Howard Board of Trustees to establish a second sorority on campus. They persevered.
And this led to a kind of race.
That's what Dr. Winfield calls it, a race between the AKAs and the Deltas to get legally incorporated first.
Okay.
He states the Deltas actually completed their requirements first. They were apparently the first sorority composed of undergraduate Negro women to apply to the trustees of any university for the right to become an incorporated body.
By?
Their application was reportedly held up, delayed by the university secretary, George W. Cook.
Why?
The account suggests this delay allowed AKA to get their charter filed just ahead of them by about 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Wow. Talk about tension.
You can just imagine it. But regardless of that 20-minute difference in the charter filing,
Right.
Delta Sigma Theta was officially founded on January 13th, 1913. Their certificate of incorporation came through on February 18th, 1913. That gave them the official green light, permission to incorporate with that focus on developing morality and scholarship among women. What a start.
An absolutely impactful beginning. Okay, so founding secured. Now, forging that distinct identity wasn't just about actions but symbols too, right?
Absolutely. They were very intentional about it. Symbols steeped in history and their values. The motto itself is quite profound. Intelligence is the torch of wisdom.
I like that. Intelligence is the torch of wisdom. And the symbols.
Meticulously crafted. Founder Marjorie Penn White designed the sorority pin, the 3 Greek letters, Delta Sigma Theta, set with 9 jewels. Each jewel holds a secret meaning.
Secret meanings, okay. And the pyramid pin.
Ah, yes, that became iconic for the Pledge Club. It was actually designed later by the Epsilon chapter at Ohio State and then adopted nationally in 1920.
And the crest.
Yeah.
The coat of arms.
That was designed by Soares F. Aileen Marks and Jeanette Triplett Jones. It really visually articulates the motto. You have Minerva, the goddess of wisdom, holding that torch.
The torch of wisdom.
Exactly. There's a sword symbolizing truth, a staff for leadership, and a laurel wreath representing honor and achievement. It's quite detailed.
And the 9 jewels on the pin. They stand for something specific.
Yes. The 9 jewels in the Sigma sign represent Delta's 9 cardinal principles. Are you ready?
Lay 'em on me.
Honesty, purity, fidelity, justice, compassion, dedication, fellowship, temperance, and courtesy.
Wow. A strong foundation of values.
Indeed. And their sorority gemstone, an illustrious pearl, it all ties together, creating this really powerful visual language about who they are and what they stand for.
There's that quote from Mary McLeod Bethune you mentioned. It really captures the spirit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About the Delta Girl's purpose being beyond self-centeredness.
It really does. She said, "The Delta Girl has been given the opportunity of education and broad development. It is pleasing to a heartfelt depth to see her not as self-centered, desirous of selfish power, wanting people's praise, or wanting glory. It speaks volumes about that service-oriented mindset from early on."
Which brings us back to that Omega Delta connection discussion.
Right. Dr. Winfield does note that detractors, people critical of the split, often pointed to those close relationships some AKAs had with the Omega founders. The idea, or accusation really, was that the Omegas sort of instigated the whole thing. He also mentions that the choice of the African violet over the AKA tea rose was seen by some as another deliberate nod to the Omegas.
Because of the purple color again.
Exactly. That purple and gold connection symbolizing that special bond, at least in the eyes of some observers and the early Deltas themselves.
Okay, so despite any controversy around the founding, Delta Sigma Theta didn't shy away from the public eye, their first public act.
Less than 2 months after founding, March 3rd, 1913, the women's suffrage procession right there in Washington, D.C.
Talk about making a statement immediately.
Absolutely. They marched with other Howard students in the collegiate section, alongside huge figures like Mrs. Mary Church Terrell, who we'll talk about again, and Mrs. Ida B. Wells Barnett.
And they marched in caps and gowns.
25 Howard students did, yes. A very visible presence, asserting their place, asserting black women's place in the fight for suffrage. A really brave move.
But it wasn't easy. They faced discrimination during the march itself.
Oh, absolutely. Overtly. The organizers were apparently hesitant, didn't really want to include advocacy specifically for black women's suffrage. And there was that specific incident Dr. Winfield mentions with Ida B. Wells being asked not to march with the main Illinois group.
But she did anyway.
She did. Showing incredible resolve, she just waited and then stepped into the street to join her Chicago group as they passed. Wouldn't be sidelined.
Incredible. Okay, so after that powerful public debut, they focused on building the organization internally.
Yes, building a strong foundation. One of the first things was getting an official pledge written. And who better than Mary Church Terrell?
The activist and suffragist.
The very same. She wrote the pledge in 1914. It encourages members to aim for the highest educational, ethical, spiritual achievement, but crucially without compromising values for money or gain. Sets a high bar.
And the 1920s seemed like a period of real growth and formalizing things.
Definitely. A lot happened in the 20s. They established May Week that was designed to motivate black women specifically towards higher education. They launched their official publication, The Delta. Poignantly, in 1920, they created the Omega Chapter.
Omega Chapter.
To honor members who had passed away. A way to remember and maintain that sisterhood connection.
That's thoughtful.
Yeah. And then Sadie T.M. Alexander made history as the sorority's first honorary grand president and national leadership role. The official Delta hymn was adopted in 1924.
Lots of structure coming into place.
By 1925, they set up formal regions to manage growth and introduced the Jabberwock.
Jabberwock. What's that?
It became a signature fundraising event, often a talent show or variety performance to support their programs and scholarships. Very creative.
Why?
Then the Scholarship and Standards Committee formed in 1929, and finally, national incorporation, leading to the formation of the Grand Chapter on January 20th, 1930, that really cemented them as a solid national organization.
Right, which sets the stage perfectly for the next phase, a legacy of service and advocacy mid-century to global reach. That incorporation in 1930 must have really fueled their expansion.
It seems like it. They didn't slow down. Dr. Winfield highlights some key initiatives from this period, like the 1937 National Library Project.
What did that involve?
It was about tackling illiteracy and lack of resources, especially in the rural South. They provided books, set up libraries where Black children often had little or no access. Really direct impact.
That's powerful. And then during World War II.
Yes, World War II. In 1943, they organized the National Victory Book Drive, getting books to servicemen, again emphasizing education and support even during wartime.
And speaking of World War II, you have to talk about Charity Adams Early.
Oh, absolutely. A remarkable Delta. She joined the Women's Army Corps, rose all the way to lieutenant colonel.
The highest-ranking Black woman in the conflict.
That's right, and she led the 688th Central Postal Directory Battalion in Europe.
The 6888, their story is incredible.
Isn't it? They cleared this enormous backlog of mail for U.S. soldiers, a huge logistical feat, especially within a segregated military. Just amazing leadership.
And after the war, their commitment continued.
Definitely. Dr. Winfield notes a significant donation in 1945, $1,000, which was a lot then, to the United Negro College Fund.
Supporting education.
Always. And that same year, 1945, they were central in establishing the American Council on Human Rights, really pushing for justice and equal opportunity across the board.
Then comes the Civil Rights era. Dorothy Height's leadership seems pivotal here.
Hugely pivotal.
Yeah.
She led from 1956 to 1970. And she introduced the 5-point thrust.
Remind us what those 5 points are.
Sure. It's a really comprehensive approach: educational development, economic development, physical and mental health, political awareness and involvement, and international awareness and involvement, covering all the bases for community uplift.
Very holistic.
Exactly. And under Height, Jean Levita Noble served as National Project Director. Her study, The Negro Woman's College Education, was groundbreaking, really influential. So influential, in fact, that she got appointments to federal commissions under Presidents Johnson, Nixon, and Ford. Shows the kind of respect she, and by extension, Delta, commanded.
And their advocacy continued through the 60s.
Nonstop. In 1967, they co-sponsored a conference with the National Organization for Women and NW, focusing on equality in education. An early example of that kind of cross-organizational work for women's rights.
And the March on Washington.
A powerful moment. They were there in 1963. Significantly, that was exactly 50 years after their first public march, the women's suffrage procession.
Wow, 50 years to the year. That's a powerful through line of activism.
Isn't it? And this period also saw the start of the Social Action Commission to tackle issues directly, and Delta Teen Lift in 1963, which focused on empowering young people through educational trips.
Their influence was clearly growing, meeting with the president.
Yes, in 1966, the executive board met with President Lyndon B. Johnson. Discussing community concerns right at the top level, they had a real voice.
And this reach extended beyond the U.S., too.
Oh, yes. Their mandated programs became international. Dr. Winfield mentions the 1968 Unwed Mothers Program and a really important seminar in 1970, the East African International Women's Seminar held in Nairobi, Kenya.
Showing that early commitment to global sisterhood.
Absolutely. And remember, their first international chapter was founded way back in 1950 in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. And they established their national headquarters in D.C. in 1953, giving them that central base for all this expanding work. It really demonstrates this unwavering focus on service, education, and pushing for social equity, not just at home, but globally.
What an absolutely incredible story we've traced. Delta Sigma Theta, starting with that vision for transformation and change right there at Howard, and growing into this truly formidable force. Sisterhood, service, social justice, they faced down challenges, left this huge mark on history, and just kept adapting and expanding while staying true to those core principles.
It's truly remarkable. So just to recap some quick facts for everyone listening.
Intelligence is the torch of wisdom.
Got it.
Colors, crimson and cream.
Classic.
Flower, the African violet. Mascot, the elephant.
Okay.
And their headquarters address is 1707 New Hampshire Avenue, NW, Washington, D.C., 2009.
Good to know. So as you, our listeners, think about this amazing legacy. Here's maybe a final thought to mull over. How does an organization like Delta Sigma Theta manage to navigate a whole century of just massive social, political, cultural change, constantly adapting how they work, expanding where they work, but somehow steadfastly sticking to those founding ideals, morality, scholarship, service? What lessons can maybe we all draw from that kind of enduring impact?
That's a great question to reflect on. And if you want to dive even deeper into this incredible history and the broader context of Black Greek letter organizations,
yes,
we absolutely recommend the book we've been drawing from, Before You Pledge: Essential Information You Should Know About Black Greek letter Organizations and the Dynamics of Pledging in a Culture of Hazing by Dr. Michael J. Winfield Sr., with that foreword by J.T. Childs Jr.
And where can folks find it?
You can easily find it on Amazon.com, or you can purchase it directly from Quest Excel Multimedia, LLC. Their website is www.questexcelmultimedia.com. That's QUESTEXCEL multimedia.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this duck dive today. It's been fascinating.
Always a pleasure.